Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.
One of the nation's finest museums of American art is not in New York or Washington, D.C. It's here in North Carolina, not far from downtown Winston-Salem. But as reporter Maria Lundberg shows us, the collection of artwork isn't the only aspect that's amazing. It's also the building where the art is displayed.
One of the most well-known landmarks in the city of Winston-Salem is Reynolda House, located next to Wake Forest University. The 35,000-square-foot home was built in 1917 by Catherine Smith Reynolds and her husband, tobacco tycoon R.J. Reynolds.
So industrialists were kind of moving out to the countryside and building palaces, really, kind of on the European model. Reynolda is in that tradition, but it's also kind of different in that there was a farm, which was a kind of progressive demonstration farm, which the Reynolds hoped would kind of teach farmers of the area the newest, most scientific methods.
In 1917, the house sat in the center of a 1,000-acre working country estate that was the vision of Catherine Reynolds. Today, the farm no longer exists, but 179 acres remain where visitors can stroll through gardens that look like they did originally. The home itself has become one of the most popular house museums in the South. Inside, the impressive reception hall was the center of activity where concerts, parties, and dancing took place. One of the most fascinating objects in the house is this organ that's been here since 1917. Catherine Reynolds felt that music had the power to bring relaxation and harmony into her home.
The organ had over 2,500 pipes, and the organ is in its original condition. It's a pristinely preserved Aeolian organ.
As visitors tour the house, they get a sense of what life was like for a wealthy Southern family in the early 20th century. Rooms are filled with furnishings and personal objects that belonged to the Reynolds family. Upstairs, the attic displays a collection of clothing worn by Catherine Reynolds and her daughters. Nearby, toys owned by the Reynolds' 4 children fill several display cases. Interesting recreational facilities were added to the house in the 1930s, including a shooting gallery, Art Deco bar, and an indoor pool. And while Reynolda House is exceptional for its decorative arts and elegant furnishings, what makes it truly amazing is that it's also one of the finest museums of American art in the Southeast.
The Reynolda estate dates to 1917, but the collection only dates to the 1960s, and that's when Barbara Babcock Milhouse, who was the granddaughter of R.J. and Catherine Reynolds, began collecting American art. So the result is this collection of really exceptional quality, and each work is a masterpiece, and through them we can really tell the story of American art, the art of our country.
Reynolda's nationally renowned art collection contains more than 300 works which span 3 centuries.
One of our best portraits is the portrait of Sally Foster Otis by Gilbert Stuart. And Gilbert Stuart, of course, is well known for those familiar images of George Washington that he created beginning in the 1790s. And he was one of the foremost painters of the American Federalist period. She's beautifully dressed, and she's very fashionably dressed. She's dressed in this style called the mode à la grecque. And so you see this dress that looks very Grecian-inspired, and a Grecian-inspired armband. And this was in fashion because America at the time liked to compare itself to the first democracy, Athens. Moving into the 19th century, you see the rise of the landscape painting and what we call the Hudson River School. Thomas Cole was the father of the Hudson River School, and we have a wonderful painting of his. And then he had a student named Frederick Church. He was seeking out new unspoiled places to paint, and that took him to South America, actually. And in 1853, he went to Colombia in Ecuador, and then returned to the States and painted the Andes of Ecuador in 1855. And that's really one of the stars of our collection. And it's this incredible combination of 19th century kind of scientific attention to detail with this religious awe at the magnificence of God's creation.
One of Church's contemporaries, Albert Bierstadt, traveled to California to paint landscapes of the American West, like this one called Sierra Nevada.
In our painting, you have this combination of these exotic elements that the audiences back in the East would have been interested to see about California, this unexplored territory. So you have this crystalline lake and a plunging waterfall and these towering sequoias and then these snow-capped peaks and animals coming down to the water, and all of this would have been very exotic for an Eastern audience.
In the studio, a work by William Merritt Chase presents a more progressive approach to painting.
Chase's work is much more modern. It doesn't have moral content. It doesn't offer a narrative. It's an aesthetic arrangement of different objects that he collected on his travels, from Italian chests to Japanese figurines. And then at the center, there's this modern woman dressed beautifully, and he paints with this very slashing brushstroke that really lets you know that this is the creation of an artist. This is not just a window onto a scene in nature.
The quality of the works in the Reynolda House Museum of American Art is such that you might expect to find this collection in a major art gallery in New York. But the setting here is part of what makes the art accessible and enjoyable for those who visit.
You have this intimate setting in which to enjoy these masterpieces, and that's unusual because it's a historic home. It's not just a museum. And so you're learning about the works of art just at the same time that you're learning about the history of the house and the history of the family.
Thanks to the vision of Catherine Reynolds and her family's commitment to preserve this jewel, visitors today can enjoy the incomparable beauty of Reynolda House, its gardens, and one of the finest American art collections in the country.
Reynolda House periodically rotates the works that are on display, and the collection also includes pieces by renowned artists Mary Cassatt and Georgia O'Keeffe. From October 7th to December 31st of this year, Reynolda will feature a special traveling exhibition of modern masters from the Smithsonian American Art Museum. For more information, visit their website at reynoldahouse.org.
Podcasts on UNC-TV.org are made possible through the financial contributions of viewers like you, who invite you to join them in supporting UNC-TV.